one of the enduring images, I'm sure, all over Germany, Europe, and in 6 hours, America, little tiny people will be taking giant backpacks full of these heavy kind of brick-like objects and struggling their way through the snow to school. And it's a process, as Steffi mentioned, that has been going on almost unchanged for a very long time. The only difference, I guess, is that the textbooks get more and more expensive. They used to be cheap, now they're vastly hundreds. I mean, I have 2 kids in college, and I can tell you that I am a major profit center for a number of fine publishers around the world. So there's lots of problems to attack here, and Osman, who came to the United States from Pakistan to go to college at the freezing University of Minnesota.
That's right.
Stuck around and did electrical engineering and got interested in the question of these book things.
That's right. That's right.
So it's a slightly complicated story because I think he's listed in some of the things as Chegg, which is one of the companies he's doing, but there's actually a second newer company. So I think we'll zoom through Chegg, which is fairly straightforward, and then go on to the newer, more fun No project, which is what the demo will be when we get after this. So, I mean, just tell us very quickly, what is Chegg and how does it work?
So Chegg allows college students to rent their textbooks, and it also gives you services around the textbook. We started the company, actually, the textbook rental part was Plan B. Plan A was to be a Craigslist for colleges. But what we found, one category was extremely popular among students, which was textbooks. And we remembered our days in college when we had to pay through the nose for textbooks. And we said, well, what we can do which will be different. And we said, allow students to rent their physical textbooks. And we launched that company, and it just went on.
So that means you had to build warehouses, you had to...
Physical infrastructure, warehouses. We had to build in a sophisticated pricing system. It's almost like a stock market for textbooks because we manage the price of textbooks on a daily basis to make sure we're never overcharging the students or the price doesn't drop where it becomes unaffordable for us.
And they had to send them back, so you had to verify that they were okay, in decent condition, all...
Absolutely. It's a funny story there. When we were starting the company, everyone pretty much said, don't do it. Students are going to cheat you. They won't give you your books back. And our philosophy was, look, only maybe 1 or 2% of kids will do that. 98% are good. So we are actually going to design the company for the 98%. And it turns out that's exactly what happened. Now, in the process, we had Harry Potter was all the rage, and it was the Minister of Magic. So we said, let's get a Minister of Misinformation. And because we began to tell the market, the books aren't coming back as well, and it's a big trick, it's like not going to work, so that we could stay in the market longer without competitors jumping in. Right. And it worked out really well for us.
And so, so how many years ago was that when you started?
It was 2006.
2000. How many roughly customers do you have now?
So Chegg today has roughly 4.5 million students, and they're not just renting textbooks. They're doing scheduling. They have homework help. There's tutoring. We also bought the company called Zinch, which is like a LinkedIn for students. So it's broader services in general for around the textbook.
And typically, the typical $100 college textbook goes for what's the rental price?
45.
45, so you can save a
lot of money. Yeah, and students really don't need to keep all their books. They can always buy the books they really need. Like I may need a math book for sure if I'm going in the major, but I don't need most of my books. I can just use them and then ship them back.
Are the publishers freaking out about this? Is this like...
No, actually, they're not, because the used book market already is pretty significant. Okay. And so it's almost 35% of the market already, and that's part of the used book market. So that's how it works.
So you're really competing with the used book market, not with the...
Yeah, exactly. Because, for the publishers, they only sell the book when it's new the first time. It actually stays in circulation for 2 more years. Right. So the publishers never see any money from that.
So how many times can you rent a book, typically?
A book typically lasts for 3 years. So it can go around for 6 semesters easily.
6 times 40 is 2. Do you get a discount from the publishers?
Of course. I mean, we can buy the book used ourselves. We can buy them from publishers. There are different mechanics in which it turns out to be a pretty profitable model. Yeah.
But I mean, at the end of the day, you are still dealing in those bricks that we all know and love. And so then maybe we should now segue over to you guys were looking at shipping these bricks around, and there obviously a lot of people for a long time have talked about maybe we should. Why haven't we seen digital textbooks sooner? I mean,
So, e-textbooks actually have been around since 2005, 2006. They've been around for a long time.
done by the publishers?
Done by the publishers, they were available in a browser, but the user experience is so bad that you cannot really actually use them.
They were traditional books that had been repurposed into a browser? Or?
It's not just that the books were repurposed into a browser. The whole formatting and what you could do with them, it was just not conducive. You had to scroll up and down all the time. The resolution of the screen needed you to scroll 20 times on one page, up and down. So the usability wasn't there. And I think what we are really seeing now, the innovation coming in education is because of tablets.
Because of?
Because of the tablets.
Oh, tablets.
iPad is a huge driver in the market. It's really changed the game in learning. And I think almost 30 years of pent-up demand for innovation in education is now bubbling up to the top.
But I think you told me that initially you guys had a pre-iPad tablet of your own.
Yeah, so when we started, this was even before the iPad was announced, our notion was you need a tablet form factor for learning because the laptop style is not engaging enough. Keyboard mouse doesn't work as good as touch. So we built our own tablet, and we actually had a dual-screen tablet where you could have a book and you can also write into the whole.
Now, you did this as a separate company, right? You completely.
No, it's a completely separate company. It's funded by Andreessen Horowitz. Mark Andreessen is on our board.
Right.
Intel is also an investor in the company.
And the decision was made, let's keep textbook rentals over here.
Yeah, because No was more, initially it was hardware, but it's more about learning science itself than an e-commerce play.
Right.
So the people that you need to build this company are a completely different set of people than you would need for Chegg. So it's a different kind of company.
And you started with the idea that you were going to have to build your own hardware.
I did, and my daughters were actually part of that. For me to really figure out how to make this work, I was walking down the stairs one day and I saw my daughters, who are now 9 and 6, they were doing homework, and I just saw myself doing this decades ago in the same exact manner, and I really felt, wow, technology is definitely not catching up to learning, but it was really about you got to have a tablet. It's not about a laptop.
Right. And especially not have to have that pathetic backpack.
Absolutely. It's a typical backpack can weigh 22 pounds.
For a 23-pound kid, it's crazy.
I have to pick my daughter's bag, put it in the car because she can't lift it. So it's that heavy. And it's going to go away in the next 5-6 years.
Well, why don't we do this? Why don't you give us a little walk through, and then maybe when there's a few minutes left, you can come sit down and we'll get questions from the audience.
Sounds good.
Or whatever.
All right.
Thank you.
So over here I have, it's the No app which is on iPad. It's called Textbooks. And what you see on the screen over here is the main interface. We take a course view for learning where the book is part of everything that you do. So everything that you put in your course, PDFs and things like that, can be put in here. So I'm going to go into a biology book. And what you'll see is we have taken the current content that's available today, that's being used in colleges today. And we said, as a first step of learning, how do you take what people are using today and bring it into this world and then rapidly iterate and innovate from there? So for example, I can take this book and I can go into a page here. Now, as you can see, typically exactly the way you highlight in a physical world, you can do stickies and all those things are there. For example, you simply put your finger on the highlight and it takes it away from you. Other bits of technology that we put together, that if you double tap on a picture with labels, we can convert any picture and label into an automatic quiz, which now you can use to study yourself and come to answers. It's really trying to bring the technology into the learning process itself. And as I can go through all the answers, it eventually gives me a score, and it tells me how did I do it last time. But the image itself is also something which we say, all right, this is something important for me to remember, because the idea is to make books interactive, but also let you personalize them, that we're able to extract all the content that you think is important for you and pull it away. Another interesting example is, say I go to a page over here. On this page, I've got the videos, which is a content from the publisher that we've also brought into the book, that now you can play videos for the topic. One of the key things in learning is going to be that rather than chasing content all over the web, you need to bring in the content to the student at the point of interaction to really make it useful. If I go further down into some other area of the book, I can touch on this word called urea. And this now gives me smart links. It gives me glossary, it gives me definitions, it gives me videos, but it can also give me content such as 3D, which I can now begin to use to interact with content. Now, as you can imagine, for a biology student, it could be hard. There's so much content out there which is sitting in the fringe because publishers don't know how to really bring them in to the book. And what we're building is a technology to allow you to do this across hundreds of thousands of books. Now, other things that we have done is we have also automated the concept of flashcards. Flashcards are really learning important tool for students. And what we have done is we have now brought in all these flashcards from the glossary and from the parts of the different book, but we've put some learning science behind it that based on the confidence that you have in your answer, it will either put it down at the bottom of the stack, or if you're really not sure, I say, well, I know the answer somewhat, then it puts it back into the stack at a certain spot to bring it back to you as you go. Now, where all of this begins to come in together is eventually the notion is that we want to bring all this personalized content and extract it for you towards in the end. So we have something called a journal. As I was showing you highlighting, the highlighting actually was dropped into this view where all the images and all the pictures, everything that I was using are now being extracted for me. The students tell us the journal is a huge feature for them because it helps them save 3-4 hours before an exam. Instead of having to go page by page, they can go to the point where all the content is put together. Now, where some of these learning is going is that the form factor of the textbook, right now it looks standard, but as technology is improving, it's slowly morphing into more tablet-style content, and that's some of the future things that we'll be doing.
Osman, speaking of form factors, what do publishers think about you taking their lovely textbooks and doing all this magic to it? Are they happy, unhappy? What do they say?
I think 98% of them are happy. There's always, the one or two which are laggards, coming behind. But they actually have all this content sitting in their warehouses, in their data warehouses. They can't use them. And we have brought this front end where you can now layer it easily. But the key is how easy we've made it for them to put it onto their textbooks is another key thing.
So how many books have you put into your system now?
So we have 150,000 textbooks.
150,000 titles.
Yeah, 150,000 titles. And we get print PDFs from the publishers which have crop marks and all kinds of stuff on it. So we've written the software to take the book and clean it up and put it in the right size. We disassemble every image, every alphabet from the book. We lift it up.
Do they give you the electronic images, or do you have to scan everything?
No, it's electronic. So we get a PDF.
Okay.
So then we take that, and then now we know how to do magic with it, essentially.
And what kind of a person does that? I mean, a textbook disassembler and then reassembler. What are you?
It's called a computer.
It's called it's automatic?
It's all automatic. Yep.
You can just feed a PDF in and out comes that?
That's the way to do it. That's where technology has to come in. Now, we do use a probability-based QA to make sure, we have the software which says, all right, if I've looked at 30 pages of this book, most likely this book is fine. Right. So we use some of those algorithms in QA to make sure the books are fine. But it's a self-learning system. So as more books are coming in, it's getting smarter. And that's why you can get to 150,000 books, because the notion is, as we figure out what is the next generation of content, you got to give students what they need today in the classroom. 98% of students are using normal textbooks. So transition has to start from this point, and then you rapidly innovate from that point going forward.
Now, I mean, in theory, you are digitizing an analog book. In theory, somebody could design a digital book from the start. Are people doing that?
Absolutely. I think Apple's whole announcement last week about education was in the K-12 market. They want people to design books from scratch, and so things like that are coming. I mean, I think we're really at the entry point of innovation in education. You will see some really amazing things coming in pretty soon.
And so now the business model, you no longer have to build the tablets because Apple did that for you, right? So
so 75% of the student market is Microsoft based, not Apple based.
Okay.
So an Android is coming on. Win 8 I think is going to be a really amazing platform. So we're actually looking forward to Win 8 coming out on tablets. So it's going to be Apple, it's going to be Microsoft, and it's going to be Android based tablets from Samsung and other people, which will
And
eventually.
so how does it work? So a student goes to a No portal and
Yeah.
scans down and finds the book he needs, and walk us through that.
Yeah, so it's simple. You can either go to know.com or you can go to the app and buy from there. A professor typically gives you an ISBN, which is a 13-code digit, which identifies uniquely every title in the market. You put that into our site, and we say, here it is, and then you can open it wherever you want.
And you buy, what's the price typically?
It's e-textbooks are today 30 to 50% cheaper, but I think they can go down a lot more.
And you own it then?
So yes, you can own the book. In some cases, if you want, you can rent the book, and after 180 days, your notes are saved, but the book title may disappear.
Ah, okay, that
Yeah.
saves the notes.
Saves all the notes, because that's your content.
And what's the adoption pattern been like? How many schools are you?
So we have students from 5,500 universities. We have hundreds of thousands of students adopting it. Our focus initially has been more on the iPad, because there isn't any other tablet in the market today. But now, we are seeing a lot more student-specific tablets coming out soon. So we think it's going to be a fast-growing market
Are
across
there
the board.
geographic patterns? Is there any kind of anything you can say?
So from the college market, no, it's pretty much everywhere in the U.S.
Undergraduate, graduate?
And undergraduate, 26% of customers are freshmen, 27% are sophomore. We even have graduate students. 6% of customers are actually high school students who are taking college classes. So it's more about the profile of the person than the geographical location. It's more about the early adopters who are really coming in.
Are textbooks a highly nationalized thing? I mean, for instance, how easy will it be to bring this to Europe?
So actually, core content is going to be the same, but in Europe, what the publishers have done is they have an international edition. So there could be an edition for the country, which, like American English is different than British English.
So the big textbook publishers are international?
Oh, yeah, they're everywhere. Oh, yeah.
I see. So
Yeah.
and is Europe in the plans in the?
Absolutely. So we actually will be doing some announcements in a few months on some interesting things happening in Europe. I think K to 12, Europe is going to be well ahead of the US from what we're seeing. The governments
Why?
The governments are stepping in and saying they want to do a one-to-one program for every student, and they're now at the point where they're actually doing testing in the next few months. So it's not just talk; people are actually doing it. And the US is like 50 different countries. Every state makes its own rules, so it's a much difficult process to go there.
And so are schools going to be giving out tablets and things? Is that one of the?
In that model, yes.
And that obviously speeds the adoption for you guys if suddenly everybody in the room.
Absolutely, absolutely, it totally does.
And so, how many employees have you got now?
So we are roughly 70 people.
That's all.
Yeah.
You can do all that, millions and millions and millions with 70 people.
We love computers.
And you're based where?
In Santa Clara, California.
So you moved to California. The
Yeah.
cold got to you.
Yeah, absolutely. In 2000, I was out of there, Minnesota.
Does anybody have a question from out there? I promised that we would ask. There's one right there.
You referred to Apple.
I'll repeat the question. Go ahead.
You mentioned Apple making the software tools available. Can you talk about your strategy in the context of making tools available for people to read independent of the publishers?
Sure.
It's a question about tools that Apple and others have talked about putting out so that everybody can make their own textbooks. And
Yeah, so we're, as a company ourselves, are not into publishing tools. Adobe has done a very strong job in producing tools. So we ourselves don't see us competing in the iBook authoring tools. And I think if we take a look, most of those books are for people to create smaller titles for use. The larger textbooks, they have to be vetted by experts, because if my daughter is going to use a textbook, it has to go through a process to make sure it left-leaning or right, who put the content together. So that is more like a garage brand where people will play with it, but the serious work is done by the publishers.
okay, any others? This is oh wait, there we are. Yes.
Hi, my name is Katerina Tsai, and I work for a professional publisher. So I see a lot of value that you're adding to the textbook. And as publishers, we're always concerned, right, that the content is getting devalued in the transformation to digital. So how do you help publishers think about kind of, the fact that you're adding a lot of value to the textbook, and at the same time, one of the, selling points is actually it's 30 to 50% cheaper than the print?
So from what we understand and we believe that the biggest threat that has been to the publishers has been the used book market, because a book typically, which is around for 3 years, they only make money on the new book, right? So, but in the digital world, you're not allowed to resell a book. So everyone will have to buy their own copy or rent it, but you can't keep on selling it. So the publishers, even if they decrease the price by 60%, their profits will more than double. So the promise of going digital is the value proposition, the business model is very clear for the publishers. And so, so they are actually, we have agreements with 45 different publishers already in the US. So they're definitely embracing the move to digital, without a doubt.
Well, that is a happy. So in other words, it's a win-win. The kids get cheaper, better books.
And
the publishers make more money, and the backpack guys lose. That's the only.
Absolutely.
This is bad for REI and LL Bean.
And the chiropractors.
All right, the chiropractors in the
Yeah.
future, yeah. Well, listen, that's great. We are out of time.
Thank you
you
so
very
much.
much, Justin. This is heartwarming.
Thank you.